You want to know something that I think is absolutely wild when it comes to sex and intimacy? There's all this research, right? There's all this research about like sex and intimacy, and invariably there's always like conversations around like high sex drive, low sex drive, hyposexuality, hypersexuality. But like in either direction, the limit does not exist. Like, I tend to be a fairly like asexual, low sex drive person. Like, sex is not a priority in my life, but sex has never been a priority, right? Even during like the periods of my life where you're like supposed to be horny or whatever, like it's never really been a thing for me. And there's like a very broad spectrum because like some people are really hypersexual, and they're like, they can't get enough and it's like novel stimulation and they really, really enjoy it. And then some people are like, but there's no like regulatory board of horniness that decides whether your normal is unnormal or not. There's no like horniness council that is like, well, Kate only thought about sex 4 times this week, so she's broken. So many of the conversations that we have around sex and intimacy and libido and desire often are sort of couched around this idea that like if you're not horny or you're not interested in sex, or if you're interested in sex too much, then there's just something is wrong. And the reality is that like how you experience desire is just fine unless it is causing you distress, unless it is impacting your life in negative ways, right? So like if you're like me and you're just moving through the world and you're like, nah, sex, not a huge deal, like you're not gonna get taken to horny jail. But if you are a person who really like enjoys sex normally and then you like have depression and all of a sudden you like don't want to think about sex or whatever, that could be an indicator that something is wrong. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we are only really ever shown one type of libido, one type of desire, when it comes to media, right? Whether it's gay or straight or bi or whatever, it's that people on TV are really interested in fucking, which again is totally fine. But if you are a person who leans more asexual, who leans more gray sexual, who leans more demisexual, and you're like, yeah, I really enjoy being in a deeply committed, loving, respectful, supportive relationship, but like sex is the last thing on my mind, sometimes it can start feeling like, well, am I supposed to want more sex? Am I supposed to need more sex? Am I weird for not caring if I have sex with my partner or not? And I was like, no. And then sort of on top of all that is the fact that most of the research that is done is from like a self-reporting scale. So like we have averages of like, if you ask 500 women how often they think about sex, there's going to be like an average number. And so they might treat that as normal. There are going to be people who think about sex way more than that average. And there's going to be people who think about sex way less than that average. And if it is not distressing them, if it is not impacting them, and it is not affecting their life in any way, then like, who fundamentally gives a shit? Most of the time, the most common answer to that question is, well, my partner gives a shit. Why is my hand shaking so much? That was weird. Anyway, a lot of times the answer is, well, my partner is the one who gives a shit because I think of sex twice a month and my partner wants sex 20 times a month. And so that's when the discussions start happening. That's when the conversations start happening. That's when the impacting your life can start getting a little bit more complicated. Some people are like ambivalent about sex and like, yeah, if my partner wants to have sex 20 times a month and I only want to have sex twice a month, like cool, we'll bang 15 times and we'll call it even, right? Sometimes it's like a huge deficit in relationships. Sometimes it is like a really difficult thing to navigate through if two people who love each other and are very much committed to each other can't seem to find that balance that works for them. I don't know. I feel like conversations around sex and intimacy, especially when you layer in like neurodivergency, would be so much easier if everybody came to the table with a baseline understanding that like whatever your baseline is, whatever your normal is, it's okay. And it doesn't need to be fixed. I don't know. It's just been on my mind lately because the other day I got some like, frankly, like deserved criticism about the fact that like sometimes when I talk about studies, like there's a little bit more nuance and it's like, it's hard to fit nuance into 60 seconds. But I also feel like sometimes looking at the broader picture is more important than talking about specific studies. And like the broad picture is there's literally no determination of normal and not normal. And that's like so wild to me.